Hey everyone, tonight we step into a frozen forest where silence weighs heavier than artillery. Broken only by the click of a safety catch and the breath of a girl no older than 20. She isn't a soldier in shining medals, she's a student, an orphan. A farmhand now lying in the snow with a rifle that turns her heartbeat into death's metronome. You've heard of blitzkriegs and tank duels. But the deadliest hunters on the Eastern Front were women draped in white camouflage, turning patience into a weapon and laughter into dark jokes whispered over corpses. This isn't about armies clashing, it's about a single eye behind a scope, about diaries written in secret, and about teenage girls who traded lullabies for the crack of a Mosin Nagant. If stories of war's quietest killers grip you, hit like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And what ghost of history still lingers when the night goes silent now? Steady yourself, the hunt begins. The year turns to 1942, and a quiet, yet inexorable decree begins to ripple across the vast expanse of the motherland. It reaches you, perhaps amidst the gentle rustle of leaves in a village orchard, or the hushed hum of a library, or the quiet clatter of dishes in a farmhouse kitchen. The war, which once felt distant, a rumble on the horizon, now draws closer, its icy breath whispering your name. You are young, perhaps 16, perhaps even 45. But the message is clear, unmistakable. Not married yet. Fine, marry a rifle. It's a stark humor, a chilling promise. The life you knew, the dreams you nurtured, the quiet rhythms of your days, they are asked to step aside, replaced by a duty that feels both impossibly heavy and utterly inevitable. One crisp morning, your journey begins. You leave familiar faces, tearful goodbyes swallowed by the vastness of the landscape. The train ride is long, a rhythmic clickety-clack over frozen tracks, carrying you deeper into a world you never imagined. Around you, other women sit in quiet contemplation, their faces a mixture of fear, resolve, and a deep, unspoken anxiety. They are sisters, mothers, daughters, strangers bound by a shared destiny. The air inside the carriage smells of damp wool, fear, and a faint, metallic scent that feels almost prophetic. You watch the winter landscape blur past the window, endless stretches of snow-dusted forests and silent fields. Each tree a sentinel to your passage into the unknown. Eventually, the journey ends at a place simply known as the Women's Sniper School, nestled somewhere near the sprawling, snow-laden outskirts of Moscow. The biting wind carries the scent of pine and something else, something cold and sharp, like steel. You step down from the train onto frozen ground, your boots crunching loudly in the hushed silence. The buildings here are stark, utilitarian, and they seem to absorb the warmth from the very air. This isn't a typical school. There are no welcoming smiles or soft assurances. Instead, the atmosphere is heavy with expectation, a profound gravity. The entrance exam, you soon learn, is not one of academic prowess, but of an inner fortitude, a steely resolve. It mirrors the demanding standards of a rigorous university entrance. Yet the stakes are infinitely higher. For here, the tuition fee is not measured in rubles or effort, but in something far more precious, far more absolute, your life itself. And as you gaze upon the stern, unyielding faces of the instructors, you begin to understand the true cost of this unusual education. The classrooms here are unlike any you've ever known. They are the frozen fields, the snow-laden forests, the biting winds that cut through your uniform, and the lessons, they are etched into your very bones, taught through relentless drills that push you to the limits of endurance, far beyond what you believed possible. You learn, very quickly, that patience here is not a virtue, but a vital weapon, honed in agonizing stretches of motionless waiting. Imagine, if you will, lying for 10 hours straight in the numbing embrace of the snow, the cold seeping into every fiber of your being. You can feel the sharp bite of ice against your skin. Hear the whisper of the wind as it tugs at your hair. See the slow, silent descent of snowflakes that settle on your eyelashes, blurring your vision. The instructors, hardened by the brutal realities of war, watch with unblinking eyes. They teach you to stay absolutely still, to become one with the desolate landscape. Nature's calls, your body's demands, must be ignored. You learn to urinate in position, the brief, warm wetness quickly turning to a chilling cold against your skin, a secret shame quickly swallowed by the greater imperative of survival. Every twitch, every minor movement, could betray your position, could mean the difference between life and death. You feel the subtle tremors that run through your body from the cold, the muscles protesting, aching with a profound weariness. And then there are the involuntary reactions, like the treacherous urge to sneeze. You are taught to bite your lips hard until you taste the coppery tang of your own blood. The sharp pain a stark reminder to suppress even the slightest sound, the smallest expulsion of breath that might carry on the wind. On the rough-hewn walls of the barracks, a stark motto is scrawled in bold, unforgiving letters. One bullet eals one life. Waste a bullet, betray the motherland. These words are hammered into your consciousness, a constant, solemn reminder of the immense responsibility placed upon your young shoulders. Each round you carry is a sacred trust, a life waiting to be taken, or perhaps lost. You learn ingenious, if grim, tricks. Helmets are placed on sticks, mirrors carefully angled, extended just beyond cover to bait enemy fire, to reveal a hidden position. It is a dangerous game, a desperate gamble with the enemy's quick reflexes. But it's a necessary skill in this brutal dance of death. The male soldiers, seeing these young women emerge from such training, would sometimes offer a dark, cynical humor. They would joke. They don't graduate with diplomas, only with proof of corpses. And though the words are delivered with a gruff chuckle, a shiver still traces its way down your spine. For you know, deep in your heart, that in this new world, those words hold a terrible, undeniable truth. Before the war called, the lives of these women, and indeed, your own, were woven from ordinary threads. Consider Lyudmila Pavlichenko, a history student. Her days filled with the quiet rustle of old books and the promise of academic pursuits. She dreamt of a profound thesis, perhaps tracing the intricate tapestry of ancient civilizations. Yet, destiny had a different manuscript for her to pen. Instead of academic annotations, she would, in time, find herself meticulously recording not dates or philosophical ideas, but the names of 309 German soldiers, each entry a life extinguished, each name a gravestone in a war-torn landscape. The scent of old paper and dust would be replaced by the sharp, metallic tang of gunpowder and blood. Then there is Rosa Shanina, a young woman born into the quiet hardship of rural life, her spirit shaped by the vast, unforgiving plains. she faced the profound sorrow of losing 3 beloved brothers to the relentless maw of war, a loss that carved an unfillable void within her. This grief, rather than crushing her, seemed to forge an unbreakable resolve, a quiet fire. From a background of poverty and loss, she would rise to become known as the Unseen Terror, a silent hunter whose presence in the snow-dusted forests struck a cold dread into the hearts of her enemies. Her hands, once accustomed to rough farm work, would now guide a rifle with deadly precision. Her eyes, once filled with the simple wonders of nature, now seeing only targets. And there is Aliya Moldagulova, an orphan scarred by the gnawing emptiness of famine, her young life already marked by profound tragedy. She witnessed the cruel, desperate act of her own mother being shot for the desperate crime of stealing potatoes, a memory that would forever burn with a searing intensity in her soul. At the tender age of 18, barely out of childhood, she would not only master the rifle, but would lead hardened men into the chaotic maw of frontal assaults, her youthful courage an unyielding beacon in the swirling chaos. The contrast is stark, almost unbearable to contemplate. The quiet dust motes dancing in sunbeams within a forgotten classroom, the gentle turning of a page, the innocent laughter of children, all replaced by the chilling reality of blood, still wet and glistening, on the cold steel of a Mosin Nagant rifle. This transformation, from the soft innocence of youth to the grim resolve of a killer, is a journey you are now undertaking, step by quiet step. The comrades, in their own grim way of coping, even gave Pavlichenko a dark nickname, whispered with a mix of awe and fear, the librarian who closed books with German blood. And as you hear such tales, you begin to understand the profound shift within yourself. The quiet, unsettling metamorphosis from civilian to hunter. The training deepens, becoming an unrelenting crucible designed to strip away every vestige of civilian life, to remold you into an instrument of precision and endurance. You are taught not just to hold a rifle, but to become one with it, a seamless extension of cold steel and calculating purpose. Imagine yourself crawling through thick, clinging mud, the heavy earth squelching beneath your body, seeping into your clothes, clinging to your skin, smelling of damp soil and despair. Every muscle screams in protest, but you push onward, inch by agonizing inch, your rifle held close, protected from the grime. Then, the next moment, you are freezing on slick, unforgiving ice, the bitter wind whipping at your face, stealing your breath. You learn to hug your rifle, to hold it so tightly against your chest that the cold steel transfers its numbness directly to your skin, turning your very core into an unresponsive, unfeeling mass. The true test, however, is not just physical endurance, but mental fortitude. You are required to remain motionless for 6 agonizing hours, a living statue in a frozen tableau. Not a twitch, not a shift, not a single sound must escape you. The air around you is still, heavy with unspoken expectations. You can feel the icy tendrils of the cold creeping into your joints. Hear the distant, muffled calls of birds, or perhaps the imagined whispers of your own fading memories. And if, in an involuntary moment of human frailty, you sneeze, the punishment is swift and chillingly effective. A snowball, flung with precision, strikes your face. Its icy impact a jolt of humiliation and a stark reminder of your failure. It teaches you to control every impulse, every fleeting sensation. Rosa Shanina, even in these grueling conditions, began to stand out. She wasn't just a survivor, she was a natural, a prodigy in the art of silent death. She mastered a technique that would become her signature, a chilling maneuver known as the double hit. With breathtaking speed, she could drop two enemies in rapid succession, the first bullet finding its mark, the second following almost instantaneously. A seamless, deadly ballet of precision. The press, when word of her prowess began to spread, would later call her the two-shot angel, a macabre title that spoke to her almost ethereal deadliness. You hear tales of such feats, and a strange mix of awe and grim determination stirs within you. One trainee, her voice barely a whisper through chattering teeth, even joked, "We learned to shoot without spilling the piss in our pants." A dark, shared humor, a desperate attempt to find a sliver of humanity in the dehumanizing process. And as you gaze upon the 50 girls in their rough, scratchy uniforms, their faces pale from the cold, their bodies trembling, you see the grim smiles, the unspoken understanding. From this moment on, death is not a distant concept or a tragic statistic. It is your final exam. The day of your first kill arrives not with a fanfare, but with the chilling silence of a frosted morning. You are out there, perhaps tucked into a snowdrift, or hidden behind the skeletal remains of a burnt-out tank. The cold biting at your exposed skin. Your heart thrums a frantic rhythm against your ribs, a drumbeat of anticipation and dread. You sight your target, a solitary figure in the distance, unaware of the silent gaze upon them. Your finger, cold and slightly numb, curls around the trigger, and you take a slow, deliberate breath, the world narrowing to the crosshairs of your scope. A moment stretches, taut and fragile. Then, a sharp crack rends the stillness, a sound that echoes not only through the forest, but through the very core of your being. Lyudmila Pavlichenko recalled her own first shot. She watched the German soldier collapse, a distant, almost unreal marionette cut from its strings. And then, a profound tremor seized her. She shook, she later recounted, as if she had killed herself, the life force of another somehow tearing through her own composure. It's a moment of profound shock, a collision between the abstract idea of war and the brutal reality of ending a human life. The weight of that first death settles upon you, heavy and cold. Rosa Shanina, in her secret diary, would later write of her first kill. "I remember his face." Those words carry the ghost of a memory, a haunted reflection, to banish it. She confessed. She had to pull the trigger again, as if repetition could dull the sharp edges of guilt, as if one death could somehow cancel out another. It is a desperate coping mechanism, a descent into the necessary numbness. Alia Moldagulova's first kill, swift and decisive, came in a moment of dire necessity, saving her entire squad from an impending ambush. At just 18 years old, she was already earning the whispers of legend, her actions echoing with a raw, untamed courage. For you, and for countless others, the transition from shock to a chilling detachment is swift. Within a week, the bodies you count no longer represent individual lives, but rather become a grim tally, a series of numbers. Like solving a macabre math problem, 1, 2, 3. The distinct individuals begin to blur, their faces fading into a nameless enemy. Fear, once a tight knot in your stomach, is slowly, insidiously, replaced by a profound numbness. The world becomes a series of targets and threats, and your emotions retreat, seeking refuge in a distant corner of your soul. The seasoned soldiers, observing this chilling transformation, would sometimes utter a dark jest. They cry on the first shot, then laugh by the 10th. And you understand the grim truth of that statement now. The tears dry quickly in the freezing wind, and a chilling, almost desperate mirth, born of survival and detachment, begins to take root. The war grinds on, pulling you into the shattered heart of ravaged cities. Places that once bustled with life, now reduced to skeletal remains. Silent monuments to human destruction. These urban landscapes become a new kind of hunting ground. A twisted chessboard where every shadow holds a potential threat, and every window could conceal an enemy sniper. The air in these ruins is thick with the scent of burnt timber, acrid smoke, and the lingering, metallic odor of burnt flesh, a constant, sickening perfume that clings to your clothes and permeates your very being. Imagine yourself in Sevastopol, a city transformed into a labyrinth of rubble and charred walls. You press your body against a section of masonry, its surface rough and cold against your cheek, still radiating a faint, eerie warmth from a distant fire. The silence here is unnerving, broken only by the distant crack of a rifle, the rumble of artillery, or the whisper of the wind sifting through broken panes of glass. You breathe in the acrid smoke, feeling its bite in your lungs, its gritty particles settling on your tongue. Every brick, every darkened doorway, every heap of shattered concrete becomes a potential hiding place. A place to lie in wait, to observe, to deliver death. Lyudmila Pavlichenko honed her craft in such places, becoming a ghost in the ruins. Her presence felt more than seen. Further north, in the brutal grip of a Lithuanian winter, Rosa Shanina endured the unforgiving cold of Vilnius. You might picture her lying frozen in a snowdrift, her eyelids crusted shut with ice, her breath misting in the frigid air. Despite the excruciating conditions, her focus remained unyielding, her resolve unbroken. Even with her vision hampered, her body aching, she reportedly scored 5 kills in a single, brutal day, a testament to her extraordinary endurance and deadly precision. The city around her was a canvas of white and gray, the stillness broken only by the sharp, precise reports of her rifle. Aliya Moldagulova, too, found herself in the thick of urban warfare. You might envision her rolling into a shell crater, the earth still trembling from a recent explosion, the metallic tang of explosives heavy in the air. Her scope, perhaps, was shattered. Yet she fired blindly, instinctively, covering her comrades as they advanced, her bleeding wrist a testament to her unyielding spirit. These cities are no longer just places on a map. They are living, breathing entities of death. Each street a potential ambush, every pile of rubble a place for a silent hunter to lie in wait. The Red Army soldiers, in their grim way, even joked. Sevastopol had 2 kinds of death German bombs, and Lady Death. And as you navigate these hushed, shattered landscapes, you understand the cold, relentless truth behind their dark humor. In the vast, sprawling theater of war, there are battles fought with thunderous artillery and clashing tanks. But then, there is the silent, terrifying dance of the sniper duel. It is a game of exquisite patience, of unyielding focus, of psychological warfare played out across hundreds of yards of desolate landscape. You are not simply a hunter. You are also the hunted. Forever locked in a deadly game of cat and mouse, where the slightest error, the faintest glint of sunlight on a scope, means instant annihilation. Imagine Lyudmila Pavlichenko, known as Lady Death, employing a classic, yet terrifyingly effective stratagem. You might picture her carefully affixing a helmet onto a stick, slowly, deliberately, raising it just above the cover of her position. The moment stretches, every nerve taut. Then, a sharp crack echoes across the terrain. The enemy sniper has taken the bait, revealing their position with their impulsive shot. Before the sound has fully dissipated, before the enemy can even register their mistake, Pavlichenko retaliates. Her rifle barks. A single, precise report, and the duel is over. It is a testament to nerves of steel and lightning-fast reflexes, honed through endless hours of brutal training. Rosa Shanina, in her poignant diary entries, captures the chilling essence of these duels with an almost poetic brevity. He missed, I didn't, like snapping a pencil. Those words resonate with the cold finality of such encounters. There is no triumph, no exultation, only the quiet, brutal efficiency of a task completed. The simplicity of her statement underscores the absolute stakes. One shot determines life. The other, death. It is a testament to her extraordinary skill, her almost supernatural ability to remain calm under the most intense pressure. And then there is Aliya Moldagulova, her courage unwavering even in the face of profound injury. You can envision her rifle scope shattered from a near miss, her wrist bleeding from shrapnel, yet still she fires. She shoots not with the cold precision of an intact scope, but with an unwavering spirit, an innate sense of target, defending her position, perhaps covering a retreating comrade, even as her body protests. These duels are less about brute force and more about the power of the mind, the ability to outwit, outweight, and outmaneuver. The conventional wisdom that the sniper is the predator and the target is the prey is flipped on its head. The mouse in this game has grown fangs, its cunning sharpened by desperation and survival. There's a dark punchline often whispered among the troops, a testament to the unexpected deadliness of these women. German snipers thought they were hunting rabbits. Turns out the rabbits wore uniforms and bit back like wolves. And as you feel the quiet intensity of these imagined battles, you understand that in this brutal war, the most dangerous animal on the field was often the one you least expected. As the war dragged on, these women, once nameless faces drafted into the chilling maw of combat, began to emerge from the shadows of the battlefield and into the glare of public recognition. Their extraordinary feats, their incredible tallies of kills, became potent symbols, transformed by the powerful machinery of propaganda into figures of national heroism. Newspapers, emblazoned with their names, carried their stories to every corner of the vast Soviet Union, painting them as embodiments of strength and unwavering resolve. Lyudmila Pavlichenko became simply Lady Death, a title whispered with awe and reverence. Rosa Shanina, with her uncanny ability to disappear and reappear with deadly precision, was christened the Unseen Terror. And Aliya Moldagulova, barely out of girlhood, became the teenage heroine, a testament to youthful courage. Their images, often stylized and heroic, adorned posters and pamphlets, inspiring a nation grappling with immense loss and hardship. You can imagine the letters that began to pour in, from children sending their simple drawings, their hearts swelling with admiration, to older folks melting down precious candy rations to send a small, sweet gesture of appreciation to these idols of the front. These tokens, however small, represented a deep, collective yearning for hope, for symbols of victory in a brutal war. The Germans, too, recognized the profound impact of these women. Their radio broadcasts, often aimed at demoralizing Soviet troops, would occasionally feature desperate pleas, even desperate promises. "Capture Lady Death," the voices would blare. "Get chocolate." It was a strange, almost absurd acknowledgement of her power, a testament to the fear she instilled even in the enemy. But the fame wasn't confined to the Eastern Front. Pavlichenko, a quiet historian turned deadly warrior, even found herself on a journey to the United States, a world away from the frozen forests she knew. You might envision her standing before a crowd in Chicago, her uniform perhaps a little out of place in the Grand Hall, her voice steady and clear. "I'm 26, she declared, her eyes unwavering. "I've killed 309 fascists. Gentlemen, how long will you hide behind my back?" The silence that followed must have been profound, punctuated only by the echo of her words. And then, the applause. A thunderous wave that swept through the hall. It was a complex sound. You might imagine, a mixture of genuine admiration and profound discomfort. Half the audience, perhaps, felt inspired by her raw courage, her direct challenge. The other half, you can almost sense, was quietly terrified, perhaps even a little shamed, to be so directly confronted, so boldly scolded, by this young Soviet woman, her gentle demeanor belying the formidable warrior within. It was a powerful moment, a stark reminder of the global impact of these silent hunters. The accolades and newspaper headlines, however, often masked the profound, grinding reality of life at the front. The price of glory, you quickly learn, is exacted in blood, in the relentless, soul-numbing cold, and sometimes, even in the insidious harassment from within your own ranks. The battlefield spares no one, and these women bore their wounds, both visible and invisible, with stoic resilience. Rosa Shanina, the unseen terror, once took a German bullet in the shoulder. You can almost feel the searing pain, the immediate shock that races through her body. With makeshift bandages fashioned from dirty rags, quickly applied by a comrade, she would then do the unthinkable, return to the brutal embrace of battle. Her body, already pushed to its limits, now carried this fresh, throbbing wound, a constant reminder of the thin veil between life and death. Lyudmila Pavlichenko, too, faced the grim reality of injury. You might picture her in a smoky, shell-blasted crater, the air thick with the smell of gunpowder and scorched earth. With nothing but a small needle and thread, perhaps scavenged from a discarded kit, she would stitch her own cheek, her hand steady despite the pain, the urgency of survival overriding every other sensation. The crude stitches, a silent testament to her unwavering will, would be a lasting scar, a mark of her ordeal. And then there was Aliya Moldagulova, whose fiery spirit burned bright until her last breath. She was gunned down in battle, her body pierced by enemy fire. Yet, even as life ebbed from her, she found the strength, the sheer force of will, to kill a German officer before finally collapsing. Her life, though tragically short, ended in an act of defiant courage, a final, unyielding blow against the enemy. But the enemy on the battlefield wasn't always the one in the opposing uniform. You hear the whispers, the hushed complaints among the women. At the front, the enemy sniper wasn't always the most dangerous man. Sometimes it was your drunk comrade. The relentless stress, the constant proximity to death, the pervasive presence of alcohol, sometimes led to darker forms of aggression, a betrayal of trust from within. It added another, more insidious layer of danger, a different kind of wound that left scars not on the body, but on the soul. A grim, shared dark humor captured this cruel irony. German bombs killed you fast, Soviet vodka hands killed you slow. The chilling truth of this statement settles upon you, a heavy cloak woven from the threads of both external and internal battles. The war eventually ended, but the echoes of these women's lives, their sacrifices, and their extraordinary courage continue to ripple through time, shaping history and inspiring generations. For some, the price of glory was the ultimate one. Aliya Moldagulova, the fierce teenage heroine, died at the tender age of 18, choosing to detonate a grenade, taking herself and several enemy soldiers with her in a final, defiant act. Today, statues honor her across Kazakhstan, her youthful bravery cast in bronze, a silent sentinel to her enduring legacy. Children might gather around, taking selfies, their youthful faces alight with curiosity. But you know in your heart that none of them could truly fathom, nor would they dare to copy, the brutal lifestyle that forged her legend. Rosa Shanina, the unseen terror, met her end shielding a wounded officer, her body torn apart by enemy fire. She is remembered with a profound sense of reverence and sorrow as the girl who blocked bullets with her chest, a testament to her selflessness and courage. Her life, though tragically cut short, became a symbol of unwavering protection and ultimate sacrifice. But Lyudmila Pavlichenko, Lady Death, defied the odds. She survived the brutal crucible of the Eastern Front, a living legend who bore witness to the horrific realities of war and the enduring power of the human spirit. You might imagine her shaking Eleanor Roosevelt's hand, a quiet historian from a battle-scarred land, standing beside the First Lady of the United States. You can almost hear her gentle laughter, a sound perhaps still haunted by the nightmares that plagued her, but also imbued with the quiet strength of survival. As she stood on the soil of allies who had once doubted the courage and capability of women in combat. The funerals of these fallen heroes were often solemn affairs, marked by the tears of their comrades, the quiet dignity of military honors. Yet, even in their passing, their lives served a purpose beyond their individual deaths. Propaganda seized upon their stories, calling them fuel for morale, their sacrifices woven into the larger narrative of national triumph. A grim, oft-repeated jest captured this pragmatic view of heroism. Soviet heroes didn't need to live long, they just needed to die loudly. Pavlichenko, after the war, returned to her passion, becoming a historian, her days filled with the quiet pursuit of knowledge, though the ghosts of her past, the nightmares of combat, never truly left her. Eleanor Roosevelt, a friend forged in the crucible of war, continued to send her letters, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond they shared. Today, statues of Rosa and Aliya stand proudly across Russia and Kazakhstan, enduring symbols of a generation of women who shattered gender stereotypes and became death's silent shadow on the Eastern Front. Over 11,000 German soldiers fell to the rifles of Soviet women snipers, a staggering testament to their skill and unwavering resolve. Their legacy is not just one of death, but of defiance, of proving that courage knows no gender, that the quiet strength of a woman can be as deadly as any bomb. And as you reflect on their stories, a final, chilling question echoes in the quiet space of your thoughts. If Lady Death shot you, could you really tell the story? Their silence from unsung then is their ultimate self-massing, terrifying power, forever etched into the annals of history. Imagine, if you will, the world poised on a knife's edge in the early summer of 1941. You stand on the threshold of a vast, fertile land, the Soviet Union, feeling the gentle warmth of June's sun on your skin. The air carries the scent of fresh earth and blooming wildflowers, a deceptive tranquility that belies the thunder gathering on the horizon. For months, whispers had traveled on the wind tails of a monstrous war machine assembling along the western borders, a vast and terrifying force under the banner of Nazi Germany. Yet, there was an underlying belief, a quiet hope, that such a storm might somehow be averted, or at least that the sheer immensity of the Soviet landscape would deter any full-scale invasion. But on a quiet morning in June 1941, this fragile peace shattered, with a brutal suddenness that shocked the world. Operation Barbarossa roared to life. You hear it first as a distant, growing rumble, a vibration in the earth that sends a shiver through your very bones. Then, the sky fills with the ominous drone of hundreds, then thousands, of German warplanes, their dark shapes blotting out the gentle morning light. Below, across a staggering front that stretched for hundreds of miles, columns of tanks, armored vehicles, and countless soldiers poured across the border. It was an invasion of unprecedented scale, a colossal military undertaking that aimed for a swift, decisive victory over the Red Army, anticipating a collapse of Soviet resistance within a matter of weeks. The sheer audacity, the raw, brutal power of it all, was designed to overwhelm and paralyze. You might have imagined a conventional war, a clash of male armies, much like those fought for centuries. You might have envisioned a landscape dominated by men, their uniforms, their weapons, their grim resolve. But as the initial shock slowly gave way to a fierce, desperate struggle for survival, something entirely unexpected began to emerge from the chaos. It was a sight that would not only confound the invaders, but also send ripples of disbelief and outrage throughout their ranks. As the Red Army dug in, resisting with a tenacity that surprised even themselves, you begin to see them, emerging from the smoky haze of battle, moving with purpose alongside their male comrades. They were women, not just as nurses tending to the wounded behind the lines, not merely as factory workers toiling tirelessly to produce ammunition, but as soldiers. You see them shouldering rifles, aiming artillery pieces, commanding units, flying planes. They were uniformed, armed, and fighting on the front lines, a direct and undeniable presence in the brutal dance of war. Their appearance was a profound shock, a jarring sight for the German soldiers who had been indoctrinated with a rigid ideology about women's roles. To them, it was an unnatural sight, an unsettling anomaly that challenged every preconceived notion. The presence of these female soldiers wasn't just a tactical surprise. It was an ideological affront, a visual manifestation of a worldview diametrically opposed to their own. This war, you begin to realize, was not merely a clash of tanks and cannons, of strategic maneuvers and desperate defenses. It was a profound collision of belief systems, of contrasting visions for humanity itself. The Soviet Union, with its proclaimed tenets of equality, had unleashed what the Germans viewed as an unexpected weapon, an army that dared to include women in its fighting ranks. This act, so simple in its execution, yet so revolutionary in its implications, transformed the conflict from a purely military engagement into a battle for the very soul of what it meant to be a nation, and what roles its people, especially its women, could embody. You stand there, witnessing the unfolding of this monumental shift, a quiet observer to a transformation that would echo through history, as the days of the invasion stretched into weeks, and the initial lightning-fast advance of the Wehrmacht bogged down against fierce Soviet resistance. The presence of women on the battlefield became an undeniable, growing reality. You observe the German troops, their faces often etched with a mixture of confusion and revulsion, as they encountered armed women in uniform. To them, this was not merely a tactical challenge, but a profound insult, a deep provocation that struck at the very core of their ideological convictions. Their world, as defined by Nazism, was built upon rigidly delineated roles. Women were to be the pillars of the home, the mothers who nurtured the next generation of soldiers, the wives who supported their men, the nurses who cared for the wounded, and the diligent workers who sustained the war effort from the factories. Their domain was domesticity, caregiving, and quiet, industrious support. The sight of a woman in military fatigues, clutching a rifle, or operating a heavy machine gun was, in their eyes, a grotesque perversion of the natural order. It was an image that directly contradicted everything they had been taught, everything they believed about womanhood, about war, and about the very fabric of society. This wasn't just about military effectiveness. It was about a deeply ingrained cultural and political dogma being openly defied. You can almost feel the collective shock, the visceral discomfort that rippled through the German ranks as they grappled with this unprecedented reality. The Soviet Union, by contrast, under the banner of communism, preached a doctrine of full equality between men and women, even extending this principle to military service. It was an ideal that, in practice, meant that when the homeland was threatened, all its citizens, regardless of gender, were expected to contribute, to fight, to defend. This stark ideological difference manifested most dramatically on the battlefield. You see it in the propaganda posters, the public pronouncements, and most importantly, in the actual composition of the Red Army. For the Nazis, these female fighters were not just soldiers. They were branded with venomous labels. They were called unnatural, deviating from their prescribed biological and societal functions. They were denounced as degenerate, a term dripping with contempt, implying a moral and physical decay. Nazi commanders, their voices laced with seething hatred, described these brave women as the face of evil, a monstrous inversion of womanhood. This wasn't merely a political disagreement. It ignited a deep, visceral hatred, a fury fueled by a sense of affront and a perceived betrayal of womanly virtues. You can sense the intensity of this emotion, a dark cloud settling over the battlefield, transforming a conventional conflict into something far more personal and venomous. This outrage was not just a matter of words. It translated into a terrifying reality for any woman who fell into German hands. The ideological clash transformed into a systematic campaign of dehumanization, making these women targets of a particular and horrific cruelty. Their very existence in uniform was deemed a crime, an act of rebellion against the Nazi worldview that could not be tolerated. You witness, through the lens of history, how this profound hatred set the stage for unimaginable suffering, marking these women for a fate far crueler than that typically reserved for male prisoners of war. The quiet, insidious nature of this prejudice became a weapon as lethal as any bullet, shaping the grim landscape of their struggle. As the war intensified and the desperate struggle dragged on, the initial shock and ideological outrage among the German forces solidified into a chilling, systematic policy of brutality. You perceive a profound shift in the atmosphere of the battlefield whenever a female Soviet soldier was captured. The calm, detached adherence to military protocol often vanished, replaced by a surge of visceral hatred, directly fueled by the Nazi High Command's directives. Orders began to circulate. Grim and uncompromising immediate execution for captured Soviet women. This was not merely a suggestion, but an explicit command, a chilling decree that stripped these women of any status as legitimate combatants. Imagine the terror, the sudden, paralyzing realization that you were not merely a prisoner of war, but a condemned individual, marked for death simply for daring to defend your homeland in uniform. You can almost hear the whispered stories, the desperate warnings that spread through the Soviet lines, reinforcing the grim choice fight to the last breath, or face an unspeakable fate. Some German generals, in their fervor to enforce this brutal ideology, went even further, openly demanding that captured women be hung from trees, their bodies displayed as grotesque warnings to any others who might dare to challenge their preconceived notions of warfare and womanhood. The image of such a spectacle, even as a whispered possibility, would cast a long, dark shadow over the hearts of those who fought. And the atrocities often deepened beyond simple execution. You recoil from the dark truth, the chilling accounts that speak of many women being subjected to gang rape before their executions. This was not just an act of violence. It was a profound act of dehumanization. A calculated attempt to strip them of their dignity, to break their spirit, and to assert dominance in the most horrific way possible. The term they coined for these women, Flintenweiber, which translates to women with rifles, became a derogatory label, a shorthand for their contempt and their determination to deny these women any honor, any recognition of their courage. It was a word spat with venom, designed to diminish and degrade. These acts, so openly cruel and systematic, were a clear and flagrant violation of international law, specifically the Geneva Conventions, which were designed to protect prisoners of war. But for the Nazis, such legal niceties were secondary to their ideological crusade. They believed that terrorizing female fighters was not just a punitive measure, but an ideological necessity, a way to stamp out what they considered a communist perversion of society and gender roles. By making an example of these women, they sought to reinforce their own worldview, to send a terrifying message to anyone who dared to challenge their supremacist doctrines. You sense the profound injustice of it all. The double burden these women carried, not only the dangers of combat, but the added terror of capture, knowing that their gender made them targets for a particularly savage form of ideological retribution. The very air around these battlefields became charged with this grim reality. A quiet, pervasive dread that settled deep into the hearts of those who fought, and those who simply witnessed the unfolding horror. It was a stark reminder that in this war, the battle lines were drawn not just on maps, but deep within the human spirit, testing the limits of endurance against an almost incomprehensible cruelty. Amidst the fierce and brutal fighting, the desperate retreats, and the moments of fleeting triumph, a grim truth emerges: not all captured Soviet women faced immediate execution on the front lines. Through sheer luck, oversight, or perhaps a moment of strategic calculation by their captors, around 18,000 Soviet women managed to survive the initial moments of capture. Yet, for many, this survival merely ushered them into a different kind of hell. A prolonged nightmare far from the chaos of the battlefield. You can almost feel the cold dread that would have settled in their hearts as they realized their fate. Most of these women were deported, packed into overcrowded, suffocating trains, and sent on a harrowing journey west, deep into Nazi territory. Their destination, Ravensbrück, an infamous concentration camp located in northern Germany. Ravensbrück was unique, and chillingly so, in that it was the only major Nazi concentration camp designed exclusively for women. Imagine stepping through its shadowed gates, the heavy, metallic clang echoing in your ears, knowing that you were entering a world from which few emerged whole, or even alive. The air itself seemed heavy with despair, the cold, stark architecture a testament to systematic cruelty. Within the confines of Ravensbrück, these women, these brave soldiers who had once faced down tanks and bullets, were subjected to an unimaginable regimen of torture, starvation, and grueling slave labor. You can almost see them, their bodies growing weaker, their spirits tested to their absolute limits, forced to toil under the watchful, unforgiving eyes of their captors. They were denied their identities as soldiers, stripped of their uniforms, and reduced to mere numbers, disposable cogs in the vast, dehumanizing machinery of the Nazi regime. Beyond the backbreaking labor, many also became unwitting subjects of horrific medical experiments, their bodies violated in the name of twisted scientific inquiry, leaving them physically scarred and emotionally shattered. For many of these women, the choice between certain death on the battlefield and the slow, agonizing torment of a concentration camp was a profound and agonizing one. You can almost hear the quiet, desperate conversations, the grim decisions made in hushed tones in foxholes and trenches. Many consciously chose suicide on the battlefield rather than risk capture, seeing death in combat as a more honorable, perhaps even merciful, end than the unspeakable horrors that awaited them in a place like Ravensbrück. The roar of a gun, the explosion of a grenade, offered a swift finality that the camps cruelly denied. Ravensbrück, with its barbed wire fences and its towering watchtowers, its gas chambers and medical experimentation facilities, quickly became a chilling symbol of hell on earth for female prisoners of war. Its very name became synonymous with unimaginable suffering and ultimate dehumanization. You sense the profound weight of this legacy, the silent screams that linger within its walls, a testament to the courage of those who endured and the ultimate sacrifice of those who did not. It stands as a stark reminder of the depth of human cruelty, but also, paradoxically, of the indomitable spirit that, even in the darkest of places, refused to be extinguished entirely. As the vast, sprawling conflict of World War II continued to consume nations and lives, the Soviet Union faced an existential threat that demanded every available resource, every willing hand. In this moment of desperate need, you witness a remarkable testament to collective courage and national resolve. Estimates suggest that an astonishing 1 million women ultimately served in the Red Army, a truly monumental figure that dwarfs the participation of women in any other military force of that era. This wasn't a token presence. It was a formidable, integrated force that permeated every branch of service. Imagine the sheer scale of it: 1 million individual stories, 1 million lives irrevocably altered, 1 million hearts beating with fierce determination. From this immense number, you learn a tragic, sobering truth. An estimated 400,000 of these brave women were killed in action, or died from wounds, disease, or in captivity. This staggering casualty rate underscores the brutal reality of their service, highlighting that their participation was not a gesture, but a full, unyielding commitment to the deadliest front in the war. Each lost life represents a family shattered, a future extinguished, a silent testament to the ultimate sacrifice. Their roles within the Red Army were incredibly diverse, far beyond what might be conventionally expected. You see them first as nurses, their gentle hands tending to the wounded under harrowing conditions, often under direct enemy fire, their presence a beacon of hope amidst the carnage. But then, your gaze extends further, and you discover them in roles traditionally reserved for men, shattering every existing stereotype. You find them on the front lines, rifle in hand, serving as infantry soldiers, their faces smudged with dirt and gunpowder, their eyes reflecting fierce resolve. They operated heavy artillery pieces, loading massive shells, adjusting trajectories, their bodies straining against the recoil, sending devastating fire downrange. More remarkably, you see women rise to positions of command, leading units in critical moments of battle, their voices clear and steady amidst the chaos. Imagine the challenges they faced, not just from the enemy, but from deeply ingrained prejudices, even within their own ranks. Yet, they proved their capabilities beyond doubt, earning respect through sheer bravery and tactical prowess. Perhaps one of the most iconic examples of their collective strength emerged in the sky's all-female anti-aircraft crews. Picture these women, often just teenagers, standing firm around their powerful cannons, scanning the skies, their eyes fixed on the menacing shapes of Luftwaffe bombers. With incredible precision and coordination, they held off enemy aerial assaults, their relentless barrages forming a protective canopy over vital cities and strategic positions. These women, by their sheer numbers, their unwavering courage, and their undeniable effectiveness, slowly but surely transformed into the Wehrmacht's nightmare. Their presence was a constant, unsettling reminder to the Germans that this was not a war they understood, not a people they could easily subjugate. You sense the growing frustration, the grudging fear that began to replace the initial contempt in the hearts of the enemy. The female soldiers of the Red Army weren't just fighting for their homeland. They were fighting for recognition, for equality, and for a place in history that would forever challenge the narrow confines of gender roles in warfare. Their collective story is a tapestry woven with threads of extraordinary courage, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to freedom, a legacy that continues to inspire. Amidst the vast, sprawling canvas of the Eastern Front, where millions clashed in thunderous battles, there existed another, far more intimate form of warfare, a quiet, deadly ballet of patience, skill, and nerves of steel. You turn your gaze now to the shadows, to the hidden positions where some of the most feared combatants of the Red Army lay in wait, the female snipers. Over 1,000 women served in this specialized role. An elite force of silent hunters who stalked their prey with methodical precision. Imagine lying perfectly still for hours, perhaps even days, nestled into the frozen earth or concealed within dense foliage, the cold seeping into your bones. You feel the slow, rhythmic beat of your own heart, the only sound in the intense quiet, as you peer through the scope, searching, waiting. These women were masters of camouflage, experts in stealth, and possessed an almost supernatural patience. Their target wasn't just any enemy soldier. It was often a high-value officer, a radio operator, a machine gunner, individuals whose removal could significantly impact the enemy's operational capacity and morale. And their impact was staggering together. These female snipers eliminated roughly 12,000 German troops. Each kill was a quiet, deliberate act, a single bullet finding its mark, often from hundreds of yards away, leaving devastation and psychological terror in its wake. Among these legendary figures, one name stands out like a star in the night sky: Lyudmila Pavlichenko. You hear her story whispered with awe and respect, a testament to unparalleled skill. With a confirmed tally of 309 enemy kills, she became a living legend, a haunting presence on the battlefields of Odessa and Sevastopol. Imagine the terror she inspired, the dread that would spread through German lines whenever her name was mentioned. She wasn't just a sniper. She was a force of nature, a silent angel of death whose precision was unmatched. Her presence was a psychological weapon in itself, sowing fear and paranoia among the enemy, forcing them to move with extreme caution, knowing that at any moment, a single, unseen bullet could end their lives. Then there was Rosa Shanina, another legendary figure whose youth belied her deadly talent. Just 20 years old when she died. She was famed for her doublets, the uncanny ability to rapidly take down 2 targets with consecutive shots, a feat that requires extraordinary speed, accuracy, and composure under pressure. She accumulated 59 confirmed kills before her life was tragically cut short. You can almost picture her, a young woman with a rifle, exhibiting a deadly grace that belied her tender age, leaving a trail of dread in her wake. These female snipers weren't just exceptional marksmen. They became a potent psychological weapon against the Germans. The idea of being picked off by an unseen enemy was unsettling enough. But the knowledge that your unseen hunter was a woman, an unnatural foe according to their ideology, intensified the terror. Their precision, their quiet determination, and their chilling effectiveness made them among the most feared Soviet fighters. You sense the profound shift in perspective, the way these women forced their enemies to confront not just their military skill, but the very fragility of their deeply held beliefs. They were the embodiment of silent defiance, a quiet, deadly force that proved, irrevocably, that courage and lethal skill knew no gender. Beyond the silent, watchful world of the snipers, another extraordinary chapter of women's wartime service unfolds, one forged in steel and fire. You find yourself now amidst the thunderous roar of engines, the grinding of metal tracks, and the acrid smell of diesel fuel and gunpowder, the world of armored warfare. Here, amidst the colossal steel beasts of the Red Army, another woman etched her name into history, Alexandra Samusenko. She represents a truly unique and awe-inspiring presence. As the only known female deputy commander of a tank battalion during the entire conflict, imagine the sheer force of will, the unwavering determination, required to not only operate within this intensely male-dominated and incredibly dangerous environment, but to rise through its ranks to a position of leadership. The inside of a tank is a confined, noisy, and claustrophobic space, a crucible of heat, vibration, and fear. Yet, you picture Alexandra, a young woman, taking command, her voice cutting through the din, making crucial tactical decisions that could mean the difference between victory and annihilation for her unit. At just 21 years old, a time when many are still finding their way in the world, she was promoted to the rank of captain, a testament to her exceptional combat leadership and her undeniable strategic acumen. Her journey through the war was one marked by relentless combat and immense bravery. You trace her path across some of the most brutal and pivotal battlefields of the Eastern Front. She fought ferociously at Bryansk, a region that saw some of the earliest and most desperate Soviet defenses. She then moved to Voronezh, another critical point in the vast struggle, and perhaps most famously, she participated in the colossal engagement at Kursk, widely regarded as the largest tank battle in history. Imagine the sheer scale of that confrontation. Thousands of tanks clashing in an inferno of fire and steel. And in the heart of it all, Captain Samusenko, leading her men, guiding her steel beast through the chaos. For her extraordinary courage and leadership under fire, she was decorated with the prestigious Order of the Red Star, a high military honor signifying profound bravery and exceptional service. It was a recognition not just of her valor, but of her capabilities as a commander, shattering any lingering doubts about a woman's ability to lead in the most demanding circumstances. You reflect on the weight of that medal, pinned to her uniform, a silent testament to countless acts of heroism. Tragically, like so many who face the relentless brutality of the Eastern Front, Alexandra Samusenko's life was cut short. In March 1945, just months before the final victory. At the tender age of 23, she succumbed to wounds sustained in battle. Her story, though brief, remains incredibly powerful. She is remembered, not just as a statistic, but as the enduring face of Soviet women in armored warfare, a symbol of their incredible bravery and their profound contribution to the war effort. You sense her spirit, a fierce, unyielding presence, forever linked to the roar of a tank engine and the unwavering resolve to defend her homeland, a quiet testament to her courage echoing across the decades. As night descends, casting its soft, velvet cloak over the battlefields, another remarkable story takes flight. Literally, high above the lines of conflict, you now turn your gaze skyward, toward the stars, where a legendary all-female air unit quietly carved its place in history, the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. These women, flying their slow, fragile biplanes through the darkness, became the stuff of terrifying legend, earning a chilling nickname from the German soldiers who endured their relentless attacks, the Night Witches. Imagine the scene. It's the dead of night, and all is quiet. Perhaps a moment of uneasy peace on the ground. Then, from the inky blackness above, you hear a faint, almost imperceptible whooshing sound, like a witch's broomstick gliding through the air. This was the signature sound of their antiquated Polikarpov Po-2 biplanes, made of plywood and fabric, without radios, parachutes, or even armor plating. They flew without navigation systems, relying on maps and compasses, often at altitudes so low that they could literally feel the wind in their faces or hear the distant shouts from the ground. These planes were so light that the pilots had to cut their engines as they approached their targets, silently gliding down to unleash their bombs, adding to the psychological impact of their ghostly attacks. The pilots themselves were often incredibly young, many just 17 to 22 years old, barely out of school, yet possessing an iron will and nerves of steel. You can almost see their youthful faces, illuminated by the dim cockpit lights, concentrating intensely as they navigated through flak and searchlights. They flew multiple missions a night, sometimes more than a dozen, enduring freezing temperatures in open cockpits, their bodies aching from exhaustion, yet always returning to base, refueling, rearming, and taking off again, their resolve unwavering. The psychological impact of the Night Witches was profound. The Germans, initially dismissive, soon grew to dread their nocturnal visits. Rumors spread like wildfire through the German ranks. Tales of these spectral women having special drugs that enhanced their night vision, or that they were immune to fear. The sheer audacity of these young women, their relentless bombing runs, and their almost supernatural ability to appear from nowhere and vanish back into the darkness, chipped away at enemy morale. A German soldier who shot down a PO-2 was reportedly awarded an Iron Cross, a testament to how feared and respected, in a twisted way, they became. Among these aerial heroines, Lydia Litviak shines brightly, known as the White Rose of Stalingrad. Imagine her, a tiny figure, yet a titan in the cockpit of her fighter plane, her courage soaring through the embattled skies. She achieved an astonishing 12 solo aerial victories and shared in 4 others, making her one of the most successful female fighter aces in history. Her skills in dogfighting, her daring maneuvers, and her unwavering determination made her a force to be reckoned with. Tragically, she was killed in action in 1943 at the tender age of 21, but her legacy endures. She still holds the record for female fighter aces, a quiet testament to her extraordinary courage and skill. The Night Witches and pilots like Lydia Litviak weren't just women flying planes. They were symbols of defiance, skill, and an indomitable spirit that soared above the darkest nights of war, reminding all that courage knows no bounds. Beyond the formal battle lines, in the occupied territories where the brutal hand of the enemy held sway, another form of fierce resistance blossomed in the shadows. You shift your focus now to the vast forests, the hidden villages, and the clandestine networks that formed the backbone of the Soviet partisan movement. Here, thousands upon thousands of women, driven by an unyielding desire for freedom and a burning hatred for the invaders, joined these resistance networks. They were not uniformed soldiers in the traditional sense, but ordinary citizens transformed into daring saboteurs, intelligence gatherers, and relentless fighters operating behind enemy lines. Imagine the courage it took to live under constant threat of discovery, to carry out acts of sabotage knowing that capture meant certain torture and death. These women moved through the occupied lands like ghosts, blowing up supply trains, disrupting communication lines, gathering vital intelligence, and harassing German forces at every turn. Their actions were acts of profound defiance, tiny sparks of rebellion that, when combined, created a raging inferno of resistance that constantly plagued the Wehrmacht. They were the thorns in the side of the occupation, a constant, nagging threat that denied the enemy any true peace or security. Among these countless heroes, one name rises to particular prominence. A symbol of youthful courage and ultimate sacrifice, Zoya Kosmodomyanskaya. You hear her story, a poignant tale that became a rallying cry for an entire nation. In 1941, at the tender age of 18, Zoya was carrying out sabotage missions deep behind enemy lines, targeting German facilities and supplies, embodying the spirit of fierce resistance. Imagine her, a young woman, operating in the bitter cold of winter, facing unimaginable dangers with unwavering resolve. Tragically, during one of her missions, she was captured by the Germans. What followed was a brutal testament to the enemy's cruelty and Zoya's incredible fortitude. She was subjected to horrific torture, beaten mercilessly. Yet she refused to betray her comrades or reveal any information. Her captors, frustrated by her defiance and enraged by her unbreakable spirit, made a public example of her. In November 1941, Zoya Kosmodemyanskaya was brutally hanged in the village square. Her final moments marked by defiant words, urging the villagers to resist the invaders, to fight on for freedom. Her execution, intended as a deterrent, had the opposite effect. News of her bravery and her martyrdom quickly spread, turning her into a powerful symbol of Soviet resistance. Posthumously, she was awarded the highest honor, the Hero of the Soviet Union, the first woman to receive it during the war. Zoya's story, amplified by Soviet propaganda, became an iconic narrative of heroism, sacrifice, and unwavering patriotism. You can almost feel the surge of inspiration, the wave of renewed determination that swept through the population as her story was recounted. It touched countless hearts, steeling their resolve and inspiring many others, men and women alike, to join the fight, to resist, and to honor Zoya's memory by continuing the struggle for liberation. Her spirit, a beacon of defiant courage, continues to resonate through the annals of history, a quiet testament to the power of one individual's sacrifice to ignite the will of a nation. As the final echoes of the titanic struggle of World War II fade into the quiet pages of history, the profound impact of the Soviet women soldiers becomes undeniably clear. You reflect now on their collective journey, a testament to resilience and an enduring spirit. These women, in their sheer numbers, their unwavering courage, and their diverse roles, played a truly decisive role in the ultimate defeat of the Wehrmacht. Their contribution was not merely supplementary, it was integral, weaving into the very fabric of the Soviet victory. Without their presence, their sacrifices, and their fierce determination, the outcome of the Eastern Front, and indeed the entire war, might have been profoundly different. Their very existence in uniform, their willingness to fight and die for their homeland, shattered the deeply entrenched stereotypes of women's roles in war. They proved, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that courage, skill, leadership, and a capacity for immense sacrifice were not exclusive to one gender. They were infantry soldiers, tank commanders, snipers, pilots, and partisans, redefining what it meant to be a combatant. You sense the profound shift in perspective they forced upon the world. A quiet revolution that unfolded amidst the chaos of battle. The Nazi regime's response to these women, their visceral hatred, their systematic brutality, their flagrant disregard for international law, served to expose the dark underbelly of their own ideology. Their cruelty laid bare the regime's inherent sexism, its supremacist beliefs, and its chilling brutality. The suffering inflicted upon these women stands as a stark indictment of Nazism, a grim reminder of the barbarity that hatred and prejudice can unleash. You carry the weight of this understanding, the quiet sorrow for the injustices they faced, and the chilling truth revealed by their ordeal. In the Soviet Union, However, the narrative was one of profound veneration. Soviet propaganda, recognizing their immense value both militarily and ideologically, elevated these female soldiers to the status of national heroines. Their faces appeared on posters. Their stories were told in ballads and films, and their names became synonymous with courage and patriotism. Their sacrifice, the countless lives lost, the unimaginable suffering endured, became an indelible part of World War II's most haunting and inspiring legacy. You see them memorialized, their stories woven into the national consciousness, not as victims, but as powerful symbols of defiance. Today, their legacy continues to resonate, quiet yet powerful, echoing through the halls of history. These remarkable women remain enduring symbols of resilience, their ability to withstand unimaginable hardship, of defiance, their unwavering refusal to yield to an invading force or to societal expectations, and of fearlessness, their willingness to confront death head-on for the sake of their homeland and their future. As you drift into a peaceful state, you carry with you the quiet power of their story, a timeless reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit, especially the spirit of those who are underestimated, can rise with astonishing strength and illuminate the path forward. And perhaps, in the soft breeze that whispers outside your window, you can almost hear the quiet echoes of their courage. Forever woven into the tapestry of human history,